It's 1:30. I'd like to call the meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission for July 15, 2019 to order. Roll call, Commissioner Littlefield.
Present.
Commissioner Hale, he's not available. Commissioner Schuline, Commissioner Miller, here. Commissioner George, not available, and Commissioner Milner.
Here.
Very good. All right, I'd like to have a motion concerning the approval of the minutes of the May 20th, 2019 meeting, please.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner Milner. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schuline. Do we have any discussion? We have a motion from Commissioner Milner, seconded by Commissioner Schuline, to accept the minutes of the May 20th, 2019 meeting. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Report on license and taxi record services for the quarter April, May, and June. Sergeant, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is our second quarterly report. Numbers are a little bit down on taxi side, but we'll start with the driver's permits. I had 35 new drivers. Most of them were transferring from Yellow Cab over to the other companies. 7 renewed. Had 1 replacement. On vehicle inspections, we had 101 go through. Those numbers are kind of skewed because they come back. They might have 2 failed inspections and they come back for a third, so we're probably got about 70-something taxis total right now that are currently operating. Limousines, we have on driver's permits, we have 3 new drivers and 10 renewed, and then on that we had 54 limos go through annual inspections. Carriages, actually had a couple carriages that didn't make it in May, so they came out during the motor carrier side, so I had 2 carriages I had to inspect. 12 of those that passed during May. Pedicabs, 4 new driver's permits, 1 renewed, 14 pedicabs. Those numbers are dropping because of our scooters, so it's kind of putting a little hurting on them down there. And on shuttles, on drivers, we had 2 new, 36 renewed, and 85 shuttles. Shuttles are actually going up. That's including medical transports and the shuttle side, so they are going up in numbers on that part. So it's give and take in the industry. So taxi-wise, they're trying to get the numbers back up. I'd like to see about another 50, 60 cars come in so we can get the city serviced. So I'm trying to get them on board as fast as we can. Also, we had 1 complaint for taxi side. So
For what?
1 complaint. It was on Twister cab.
Okay.
They said the driver was driving a personal vehicle. I got everything verified. He's not operating right now. So not a lot of excitement on that side. So have any questions?
All right, so you're saying right now we got in the 70s active taxis?
Yes.
And before Yellow Cab went away, what was our numbers about?
Guesstimating we were right under 200 vehicles total. Yellow Cab had probably 80% of the city.
Right.
Most of my other cab companies sat at the airport or down here in the Bricktown area, and we're low on numbers all the way around the board.
So right now we're in the mid-70s. We were in the 200s. How about that new company that we just approved? Are they up and running yet?
They were supposed to be coming in next week. They're supposed to give me. They said they have 9 cars. They should meet. They told me they meet the minimum of 5 cars and 5 drivers, but I'm hoping to get them up and running the first day. So all depends on the vehicle inspections.
All right. Anybody else have any questions, comments? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, we go to the consent docket. The consent docket has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items on it. Is there anybody here to speak against an item on the consent docket? Okay, staff, do you have any input on the consent?
No, all the items on that docket we're recommending approval of as presented.
Okay, do we have a motion on the consent docket?
I'll move the consent docket be approved, Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to approve item 4, the consent docket. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Milner. Do we have any talk on the consent item? Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent docket from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Milner. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, all the items are approved. All right, we go on now to item 5A, John DeVere, Senior Pastor, Hope Church, to consider a request for the installation of a traffic signal at the intersection of North Meridian Avenue and Northwest 30th Street. Staff, you have an input?
Yes, the applicant contacted us this morning to indicate that he was not be available for this meeting, and so he's asked that his item be continued to the August 19th meeting for consideration.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5A?
Move for deferral.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Littlefield to move item 5A to the 19 August meeting. Do we have a second on that? We have a second by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Littlefield to move item 5A to our next meeting on the 19th of August, and seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, the item is moved. We go on now to 5B, Terrence Hayes, PE, SMC Consultant Engineering, to consider 5 sub-items down on Fred Jones Avenue area. Do we have anybody here to speak on that item? Yes, sir. Sir, if I could have your name, your address, you have up to 5 minutes, and please make sure to fill one of these out when you're done.
Okay, I sure will. Terrence Haynes, SMC Consulting Engineers, 815 West Main, Oklahoma City. Here on behalf of the applicant to make the request to make a few changes out on Sheridan with the parking spaces, relocate a couple of the accessible spaces, and create a valet drop-off as well as a loading and unloading zone along Sheridan Avenue. We've reviewed staff's reports, are in agreement with staff, and the recommendations set therein. I'll stand here for any questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much. Staff?
All right, you've got your comments before you. What's being requested is a conversion of removal of some 45-degree angle parking spaces on the north side of Sheridan, just to the west of Fred Jones Avenue. And the reason for the removal is so that this area can be converted for use as a passenger loading zone. As Mr. Haynes alluded to, we as staff had submitted a recommendation that the loading zone be made available for commercial purposes as well. I mean, from personal experience, that is part of my commute to work, and on a daily basis, early in the morning, there's typically a commercial delivery being made from that particular parking area. So what you've got on your agenda before you is removal of angle parking from the north side of Sheridan, west of Fred Jones Avenue. We're removing 2 reserved spaces for the physically disabled, but they're also being relocated as a part of this item. And then in the area where the angle parking is being removed, that is being proposed to be used as a full-time passenger and commercial loading zone. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have relative to this request.
Do we have a motion concerning item 5B?
Mr. Chairman, I move the application be approved.
Are there comments that have to be identified?
No, but if
Not on this one.
no, except for the fact that under the summary of staff recommendations, staff had recommended that a motion for approval needs to include following, which would be the passenger and commercial loading zone be in effect on a full-time basis, and then the applicant's made aware that they've got the responsibility for preparing any construction documents that might be needed to convert it from an angle parking zone into an ADA-compliant passenger loading zone.
Okay. So, Mr. Schuline, we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to approve item 5B to include the staff recommendations. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Littlefield. Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve 5B from Commissioner Schuline to include staff recommendations, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, we go on now to 5C, Terrence Haynes, PE, to consider a request to establish a valet zone with the full-time passenger loading zone for the north side of West Sheridan from approximately 92 feet west to 182 feet west of the west curb line of Fred Jones Avenue. Yes, sir.
Terrence Haynes, SMC Consulting Engineers, 815 West Main, Oklahoma City, here on behalf of the applicant. Appreciate the recommendation and approval of this item. We have read through staff's comments and are in agreement. And if I could throw in one quick question, Mr. Chai, on the previous item, it says it will go, a portion of that will go to the City Council as an ordinance, as a draft ordinance. Do you know what date that might be placed on?
No, because what we have to do is from here, based on the Commission's action, we will start an item for the next City Council agenda, and it would just, because the council meeting is every other week now, we'd have to go back and see what the next available agenda date is.
Okay,
we can let you know when.
I'll circle back with you on that then.
Okay, that'd be fine.
Thank you.
All right. And staff, do you have anything on 5C?
No, aside of the fact that use of a full-time passenger loading zone as a valet loading zone would be considered an appropriate ancillary use. The only thing that we would note is that if approved, the valet loading zone can't be reserved for any specific user, which basically means that if there are multiple businesses that would use that particular, or could operate a valet out of that. I mean, it's not been the case yet, but we just want to make the applicant aware of that. And other than that, action on the item will be at the discretion of the Commission.
Okay. Do we have a motion concerning item 5C?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the application with staff's recommendation.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve item 5C from Commissioner Schuline to include staff recommendation. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a second by Commissioner Milner. Any discussion on 5C? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5C by Commissioner Schuline to include staff recommendation, second by Commissioner Milner. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Sir, did you fill out your form? They're right up here. Thank you. All right, 5D, Angela Freeman, to consider a request to change the speed limit on North Sooner Road between Northeast 63rd Street and East Britain Road from 50 miles per hour to 45 miles per hour. Do we have anybody here to speak on item 5D? Okay, do we have staff input?
All right, you've got our comments before you. We've got a request from Angela Freeman to consider reducing the speed limit on 2 miles of North Sooner Road between Northeast 63rd Street and Britain Road from 50 miles an hour to 45 miles an hour. We've done a review of traffic volumes, collision histories, decision site distance. One thing I want to note is that currently those drivers traveling at the requested speed limit of 45 miles an hour on Sooner Road make up about 61% of those that are observed. Right now, the 85th percentile speed on Sooner Road is the currently posted speed limit of 50. We don't have cause to recommend lowering the speed limit on Sooner Road. In rural areas, the use of a 50 and 45 mile an hour speed limits on the arterial system is common. However, reducing the speed limit to 45 will result in posting a speed limit that is 5 miles an hour below the averaged observed 85th percentile speed of 50 miles an hour. There is reducing the speed limit for a 2-mile section on Sooner Road in this particular portion of the city will create a speed zone that's not consistent with observed driver behavior. And just as a side note, there is one section of Sooner Road that's already posted at 45 miles an hour. That particular section, which is between Northeast 36th Street and Northeast 46th Street, we did conduct a speed study on that zone, and we found that about 17% of drivers are observing the 45 mile an hour speed limit set in that area. They're all typically traveling at 50 miles an hour or better. So action on this item is going to be at the discretion of the Commission.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5D?
I make a motion to disapprove this request, but I would ask this. The one site restriction at Northeast 71st Street, is it a possibility we could put a warning sign? Like
I believe there's an advisory intersection sign there. I believe it's got an advisory speed plaque below it.
Okay, okay.
Right, if you go to one of the photos, I think it shows it on one of the photos. Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Miller to disapprove item 5D. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a second by Commissioner Littlefield. Do we have any discussion on item 5D?
I'm assuming the applicant isn't here
No.
for this. And did she make any contact? The applicant wouldn't be here, or?
No, we hadn't heard from the applicant. I believe I received a red receipt on the blanket email that's sent out, but I haven't been contacted. The only applicant that contacted us to let us know they couldn't be in attendance was the applicant for case number 5A on today's agenda.
Okay, any other talk on item 5D?
Yeah, I want to just make the other comment that based on the speech study, the 85th percentile, you've already got 15% of the people that's lawbreakers. You'd reduce it, then you're going to have 61% of them that are law-abiding citizens that have to become lawbreakers because somebody set the speed limit too low.
All right, any other talk on item 5D? Okay, we have a motion to disapprove item 5D from Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is disapproved. We go on now to 5E, Lance Benham, to consider a request to, 1, change the speed limit on East Hefner Road between North Bryan Avenue and the North I-35 service road from 40 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour, and 2, for a no vehicle in excess of 2 access restriction on East Hefner Road between North Bryan Avenue and the North I-35 service road. We have several people who wanted to speak on this item. Can we have the applicant come up first? We could, please. And sir, if I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
My name is Lance Benham, 3775 East Hefner Road in Oklahoma City. That's what you needed?
Yep, that's perfect.
I represent the neighborhood group along Hefner Road between Bryant and the access road at I-35, and we have several of our neighbors that are here with me, and if I could just ask them to raise their hands so you know that they're here. But we've got several concerns. One has to do with the speeders along that stretch of Hefner Road. The east extension, the east half of Hefner Road that we're talking about is a flat area. The west half tracks up the hill to Bryant, and it may be a rise of, 100 feet or so. It's a pretty good elevation change. As you go up the hill, the road weaves. And from a residential standpoint, because of the speeders in the area, we have had a number of incidents where a resident has been trying to turn into his or her property, and we've had accelerating or speeding vehicles behind them that are honking, and then they pass them over the yellow line, the double yellow line. In some cases, this has happened to me twice, and I know one of my neighbors once, we've been turning left into our property and had someone pass us on the left. And it's almost as though a population of drivers is not aware that there's homes here, that it's a residential area. It's not a commercial area. And I know that the city, and I thank the city for doing the speed study, but I would only offer that during the window of time when the speed was studied, it was during close to the noon hour. And we all know that the big time for the speeders is later in the afternoon and on the weekends. And it's not uncommon. We've had a good response, by the way, from the city with the police department stationing some vehicles there. And we interact with those officers to find out how things are going, and we've had several of them tell us that they can hardly get their car parked before they're out again to bring somebody aside. And I don't know if everybody's been issued a citation or if some of these are warnings, but it's a pretty serious issue for us. And the busy time, the speeder time, is really in the later afternoon, probably from about 4 until 6, and then on the weekends. If the commission decides not to change the speed limit, I would like to ask for consideration that the item be continued and that maybe we could access the data from the police department, the recent data of them pulling over speeders. It's a safety issue for those of us that are trying to turn into Hefner. We don't have roads that we're turning into. We're turning into or trying to come out of our driveway. And I did mention in our letter that there's a neighborhood, Broadway Park, just east of Broadway Extension, where that speed limit is 35. And we would just ask for consideration to be treated the same way. Big truck traffic, we have a number of 18-wheelers and dump trucks that frequent that part of Hefner Road. I know that there was a vehicle classification study done by the city, and we appreciate that. It indicated that about 6% of the traffic that they monitored during that window of time, which was between about 2 and 3 in the afternoon, about 6% were over 2 axles. I was out there this morning, and between 8:30 and 9:30, it was 7.5%, were 18-wheelers or full dump trucks. And that's a 25% statistical difference from 6% to 7.5%. The issue is not so much that the trucks transit the road, but the 18-wheelers, when they're coming down Hefner Road, when they're headed east, they can't stay in their lane. There's very tight guardrails against the south side of Hefner Road. This picture that's up right now, you're looking, on the top photograph, you're looking east at the intersection of Bryant and Hefner, and the end of that road is the top of that hill that comes down. And when the 18-wheelers come down that hill, they do come over the center line because they have to. The track from the cab to the trailer, it puts their trailer over the yellow line. We know that Britton Road is 4-lane, east and west from I-35 to Broadway Extension, as is Memorial Road. And we'd like to see those trucks, the dump trucks and the 18-wheelers, use those roads as opposed to Hefner to get back and forth. And the other thing that it was not in my letter, but there's a lot of cyclists that frequent Hefner Road. They're pretty active, particularly Saturday mornings, and it's dangerous for them. When a truck is heading east on Hefner at a pretty high rate of speed, and unfortunately too many of them are probably not going the speed limit, the cyclists are clearly at risk. So that's the background. Can I answer any questions?
Very good. Thank you, sir. All right, we have 2 other people scheduled to talk. Anyone want to come on up? Whoever would like to come next. Let me have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
My name is Trav Brown. I live at 3001 East Hefner Road. In fact, that photo that showed eastbound Hefner Road, the gates on the left-hand side, that's the gates up into my house. My biggest concern is my family's lived there since 39. I've lived there since 69, and my wife and I have lived there since 1982. And we're about 120 yards off the road where our house is. And last night, a good example, we're outside having dinner on the deck. Within 30 minutes, 3 cars blew through the intersection 60 miles an hour or plus. About 2 years ago, I had a client who was a major over the Spring Lake Division, and I called him, and he sent a police officer out on a Monday night. He sat there for an hour and a half. The next night, there were 2 police officers for an hour and a half. The next night, there were 3 police officers for an hour and a half. And then on Thursday, there was just 1. And they told me, just kind of what Lance said, they're so busy they can't keep up with them. And they said that it takes almost a mile to get to Eastern for them to catch up with the people running the intersection. And I guess where I'm coming from is didn't know if we could do something to where you use the solar and you light up the stop sign, so like they do it at 122nd Broadway Extension, to where it catches people's attention. I think Lance's idea of slowing down to 35 is very good because people will be approaching that intersection a lot slower than they are right now, but they do blow through there. I also, too, think that the staff study, I agree with Lance, needs to be at a different time because I'm out in the yard, out in the pasture all weekend long, and they're blowing through it all weekend long. They start about, I don't get home till 5:30, 6 at night, but they're running it after 6 o'clock at night, too. And you like last night when Carl and I were sitting on the deck, you don't just hear them come up the road, you hear them accelerate, and they blow through there. And the most scary thing they do is at night, there's a pole light or a sensitive eye light at the intersection for nighttime. But cars will come over the hill going west, and they shut their lights off, and they blow through the intersection, and they pull them back on. So, I don't know the reasoning behind that, but I would say half of them do that. 99% of the people running that four-way are going westbound. I don't know what the reason is for that. I don't know if riffraff comes from the east or, I don't know what the deal is. But, like I said, I think Lance's idea of slowing traffic down will help this intersection tremendously. And Officer 2, I told the police officer last Friday night who's in the undercover car, the unmarked car, he can come sit in our driveway just like those other officers did, and he can become a rock star like they did too a couple of years ago. And that's what the major told me. He says that officer's now a rock star. He's giving out more tickets than anybody else did in a 6-hour time period in Oklahoma City. So that's really all I have. Like I said, I just want to support what Lance says. If we can slow him down, we're not going to lose anybody, I hope. So thank you all.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Okay, we have one more scheduled to talk. Sir, if I could have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes.
Sure. I'm Ted Struley. I'm with Campfire Heart of Oklahoma at 3309 East Hefner Road. We've been there since the mid-'50s, and as you probably know, our main program is Camp Dakani, a children's summer day camp. We have, over the course of the summer, about 250 children between the ages of 6 and 11 on the premises at any given time. During the winter months, we also provide outdoor education for Oklahoma City Public Schools and some Edmond Public Schools. We do about 35 dates in the winter and service another 2,200 children during the winter months. The traffic hazard on East Hefner Road has grown over the years to the point that we now, during the summer months, position a staff member in an orange vest and with a flag at our exit driveway to help cars exit the property safely onto Hefner Road, and we force them all to travel west so that they're making a right turn onto Hefner Road. They're not professionals at that, and it's risky for them to be out there directing traffic, but it's not nearly as risky as it would be if they weren't there. So we have them out there every morning and every afternoon when we're in session just to help facilitate the flow of traffic. You might imagine that it's not unlike a car line at an elementary school where we have a glut of cars in the morning and another glut of cars in the afternoon doing the drop-off and the pickup. Camp Dakani has continued to grow. We are investing, we have about an $8 million plan that we're investing in the site to serve even more children locally, so the problem's going to get worse on our end, not better. And I would propose that the trucks, as Lance mentioned, are a problem because of other cars trying to get around the trucks, which we see frequently. The new influx of Amazon Prime vans have contributed to that to some extent because they have a warehouse nearby. And certainly the speed limit is a concern, and I would propose that there is not a substantial difference philosophically between 250 6 to 11-year-olds at a day camp in June and 250 6 to 11-year-olds at an elementary school in November, where you would not dream of having a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit in front of the property. And I think that just our property alone may constitute a special circumstance that would ask you to reevaluate both the presence of the large trucks and the speed limit along that section of East Hefner. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5E? Okay, staff input, please.
All right, you've got our comments before you. One thing that you'll notice in the study is that we did do an extensive number of speed studies in the section where the speed limit's been requested to be reduced to 35, and in a section where it had previously been reduced to 35 adjacent to a subdivision called Broadway Park. Currently, traffic speeds are running the 85th percentile speed on Hefner Road. Is currently running in the neighborhood of 47 miles an hour. In the area where it's currently posted 35 miles an hour, that 85th percentile too is running about 45 miles an hour. In the section where it is already posted 35 miles an hour, about 23% of drivers are observing the currently posted speed limit. We had included on page 4 of the agenda item where other locations in the city where the commission had voted basically in similar situations to do speed limit reductions. We've conducted before and after studies. In a lot of cases when the built environment is not conducive to running at a lower speed, most drivers are really not really affected that much by the appearance of speed limit signage, which reduces the regulatory limit. That information is just provided kind of for your information. With respect to the axle restriction, there is one that exists to the north of here on 122nd Street. In this particular part of the city, there are only a few roads that run continuously between I-35 and the Broadway extension. Hefner Road is one of them, but Britton Road is also another one. Britton Road is a 4-lane road, and it's a continuous 4-lane section between those two highways. The axle restriction, the way it's structured in Oklahoma City's codes, will not make it illegal for a vehicle having more than 2 axles to use the road if they've got business in the area. It's primarily intended to direct those drivers that don't have business within an area to select a route that doesn't have an axle restriction on it. In this particular case, that would be Britton Road. So it's not an all-out prohibition. It's a means of deterring vehicles in excess of 2 axles from using a particular roadway. At this point in time, action on the items will be at the discretion of the Commission. As noted earlier, most drivers in this area are not adhering to the posted speed limits, and in the areas where it is posted 35, those limits are not being well respected. So, like I said, the action will be at the discretion of the Commission. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have relative to the application.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a motion concerning item 5E?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move that we deny the request for the speed limit, and I'm open for the no vehicle and axle review again. Stuart, are you saying that it doesn't make any difference if we leave it alone, or if it does go in effect, it would prohibit them?
The way the axle restriction is written, it's written such that if a vehicle with more than 2 axles, say a moving van, has got business within an area, they can use that street. But it's really designed to deter vehicles from using it if it's just like part of a main route to get from point A to point B. It's designed to keep that level of truck traffic off of the road. I mean, there are a number of city streets that have got that particular restriction, but I mean, Classen Boulevard, for example. But however, this one thing you have to bear in mind on streets like Classen, there are a number of grocery stores, and they take delivery from large vehicles. So, that axle restriction is designed to minimize the amount of time that a vehicle with more than 2 axles is on the road. Okay. But it's not an all-out prohibition on it.
So in this area, it's not as much the delivery, it's just getting from one point to another using this roadway. So, more or less, okay.
Right.
And as you said, it's because of the lack of the east-west roads in that area.
Right. Yeah, because, the next street to the north, 122nd Street, it's not continuous between I-35 and Broadway Extension. It actually ends on the east side of Eastern Avenue. It's not 122nd is not continuous from Eastern Avenue off to the west.
Okay. So your motion, sir, if you could say it again, please.
I'll make a motion that we're going to deny the speed limit because if you want to you can't enforce what you have to. Testimony today is they can't enforce what they're doing there now, even with 2 or 3 policemen out there. How do you expect them to enforce it if you drop it another? Well, you've got 60% of the drivers that are breaking the law as for speeding. And our studies will always show that it doesn't matter what you put on the speed limit sign, people are going to drive what they think is safe and reasonable. 85% of the people do that. 15%, that leaves 15% for enforcement to stop and talk to. So they're going to drive it anyway. There's just nothing you can do about that. So we just make lawbreakers out of them, that people think that it's safe and reasonable to drive 45 down that stretch of road. So that's my point there. I'll approve the axle restriction.
Okay. So we have a motion from Commissioner Miller to deny subpoint 1 and to approve subpoint 2. Do we have a second on that motion? Okay. So, seeing as we do not have a second on that motion, I'm now open to another motion. All right, seeing as we have no motion on the table that is seconded, we need to ask for a motion to defer the item till next month, if we have that.
Any opportunity for discussion or comment?
Usually it's after a motion, but Counselor? Okay, if you'd like to go ahead. Yes, sir.
My perception of this is that it is a real challenge and a condition that truly does exist. It's a traffic calming issue, and I would appreciate a deferral for a month to look into other devices, opportunities, signage. It was mentioned flashing stop signs. We also have driver feedback devices that are available in our ASAP program. I think this needs to be looked at more thoroughly than what is being requested right now, because I agree with Commissioner Miller that reducing the speed limit is not going to solve these neighbors' problems. So I would like to move for a deferral.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Littlefield to defer item 5E to the 19 August meeting,
Second.
and that's seconded by Commissioner Milner. Any discussion now? I'd like to just throw in there the same point for you all is to just put a sign to say now do 35, the people aren't going to do that. What we've seen, and I speak to myself when I don't really know what the speed limit of the road is, I kind of just look at the road and go, all right, what should I be doing? And most of the time when I finally see a sign, I'm actually close. So with the observed speeding going on, of course the captain's going to get the word out again. He already has his notes to make the call. What can be done so you could say to the people, as you look at this road, you should be going at least 40. And that's what we're talking about here. To go back to the staff to say, is there something you can bring to the table that could help us slow people down? Like you talk about when you get to the hill and you come over, maybe some signage that says limited visibility or something there to say to the driver, maybe I need to slow down. I don't know what all the options are, but I think that's where we're at is we don't want to say no because we do want to help, but we don't have anything right here, right now to help. Am I right, guys? Is that kind of what we're thinking? Yes, sir. Please come on up. Let's hear from you guys. Come up to the microphone, please.
I wanted to stay within the confines of the proposal at hand, but I might suggest that our camp may be used as a tool to achieve precisely what you're proposing, that if the warning signs and such made it clear that there was a children's facility and that there was a risk, much like there is at an elementary school, along with the problems at the intersection and the lighted sign or what have you, that would seem to me to be a very appropriate thing to do. And like you do, I look at the street and drive what I think it's worth. But if I know there's a school there or a similar facility, I take my foot off the gas pedal regardless of what the posted speed limit is, and that our facility may provide a vehicle for that kind of a solution.
Right, something, and we're not talking like a school zone kind of thing, because that's a set, there's a set rule for that, but something like we do where you see like a church sign or something that says church ahead or kids at play or something like those kind of signs that would maybe, and with a caution speed of 35 or something like that. Yes, sir, please come on up to the mic, please.
I appreciate the spirit and the direction of your discussions. We're looking for help. We're not traffic engineers, and we can analyze the data, but we do need something. And, whether it's a flashing red light above, that intersection of Hefner and Bryant, perhaps, just to let people know. We have that actually at Britton and Bryant. There's a flashing red light on that on that stop sign. And again, I want to just note that on 122nd, you're right, it doesn't go all the way through. But the no-axle restriction, the two-axle restriction, is not just between Bryant and Boulevard. It's also between Bryant and I-35. And that's the zone where we are, where the two-axle restriction is. It's frightening when you are trying to turn into your driveway and you have a dump truck that's fully loaded that's coming down the hill in excess of the speed limit, and they can't stop. They have to go over that double yellow line. And, I would encourage anybody, city staff, have you all come out and just look at it if you would be willing to do that. Because we're just needing help. We have children. Some of us have livestock. Much of that area is zoned agricultural. And you get people trying to pull out onto Hefner Road in pretty dangerous circumstances. So we really appreciate your willingness to keep this going, keep the dialogue going.
So let me go back over here to the motion. Could you split the motion and call it just for sub-item 1 and maybe make a motion to approve item 2? Would that be something you'd be willing?
I think it's very positive to keep the axle limitation, or whatever the term is, on the table, definitely.
Well,
so that to rephrase it,
okay.
I'm not necessarily certain it's important or not to remove the speed limit option of it.
Well, what I would, from the talk here, is that your motion could be modified to defer sub-point 1 to next month until staff can look at it and come up with some options, but then maybe make it to approve sub-point 2. And then that way they could press on with the signage and at least work that issue.
I make a motion for that.
Okay?
Yes.
So you want to modify your motion?
Yes.
So now we go to the second.
I'll second.
Yes.
Okay.
On the modified.
On the modified motion, okay? So any other talk now?
I would.
Go ahead.
I want to address you folks. This is a classic example of where the condition of that street is dictating the driving activity on it. And we have looked at this for years. And we have come up with a program called ASAP, Alternative Speed Abatement Program, which it's in its infancy. One of the elements, or one of the tools that's in this thing, are those driver feedback devices that I think you've all seen. What's going to slow traffic down, in my opinion, on that stretch of street is going to be a combination of things that are the driver is going to see that the condition will slow them down. As Commissioner Miller says, speed limit alone isn't going to do it. So what I encourage you to do in the next month is visit with staff and talk about what kind of options there are that could be available to you. And it's also a consideration that you may have to partner with the city, or in fact do some kind of fundraising on your own to pay for some of these elements. They're not structured where the city has the funds to install these things. So visit with staff and see what's available out there, because I know that all of us are very concerned about what you're dealing with, and we're trying to find a way to accomplish it. So it's going to take some more talk, I think. Thanks.
Okay. Any other talk on item 5E? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Milner, to defer sub-point 1 to the 19 August meeting and to approve sub-point 2. Okay. May I have your votes, please? Okay, that is approved. So just to kind of go over here, staff, you're going to look at it and look at all the tools that you may have, all the caution signs that are possible. We have the speed cart you can maybe put out there. And then, of course, Captain, you're going to get the word out to the troops to hit that area. And then also the stop sign. Even though the stop sign wasn't mentioned in the item, just by their comments, is there something we can do there, like they were talking about, well, yeah, him sitting there, of course, but as far as like what they're talking about, that red flashing light, or how something like that comes about, that, you know, you put the little four-way flashing light in the middle of the intersection or something.
Yeah, warning flashers are handled also by request to the commission, so it's possible they might submit an independent request for a warning flash at the intersection.
If you guys talk to them and that comes out to be one of the best solutions, then they could do that. That's how that would work, right?
Yeah, the only thing that would do is it would heighten awareness, maybe at the intersection, but as far as speed control beyond that,
right, yes.
It's not a device for that.
The item was the speed control and the actual vehicle, but in their talk, they identified that four-way stop is a problem. So that's something that you guys need to look at and talk to the staff, and maybe it needs its own item, like he's saying. Okay?
Yes.
Anything else that you can say on it?
No, not
Okay.
at this time.
All right, very good. All right, thank you all. Okay, we go on now to item 5F, Van Russell, to consider a request for a no-turn on road restriction effective Monday through Friday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. on 1 eastbound Northwest 140th Street at North Pennsylvania Avenue and 2 eastbound Coil Springs Parkway at North May Avenue. Hi, sir. If you have your name.
Van Russell, 3117 Northwest 157th Street.
And you have up to 5 minutes, sir.
Okay. I have fought and tried to help the traffic flow and think of ideas all around Coil Springs. I moved from Mulholland at 187th and Penn to 157th and May Avenue just to help from being blocked in. And so what I'm finding is it's just so hard to get down May and Penn and get across Memorial. And I see a lot of it is because of one, at the Coil Springs Parkway, you've got, at rush hour, you've got Gulfport, AAA, all the others, all coming in there. Well, when the traffic they're getting to turn on green, and then they're also getting to turn right there on May Avenue when it's red on for them, but when the other traffic is turning on Coil Springs Parkway. So they're filling that up. What makes that a difference is that the distance between Coil Springs Parkway and Memorial is about 200 yards. Well, if you fill in 10 cars with that, then you're helping or preceding the traffic going south on May and Penn. It only takes about 10 cars, and then it doesn't matter if it's a holiday or whatever, it takes about 2 to 3 lights to get through Memorial. On Penn, there at 38th, you've got a shopping center, and your statistics and traffic flow is going to be incorrect because for the last year, Toys R Us, Hobby Lobby, Red Rock, that whole shopping center is about 25% full. It has since been bought. It's going to be filled in, and also Hemispheres has slowed down because they're closing that deal on 140th. So you're going to get all this, and there's talk of possibly even like an REI moving into one of those buildings. You're going to build up that traffic, and it's the same thing. It must mean a lot because on 138th and 140th, Hobby Lobby moved 200 yards to the south so they could be closer to Memorial. So it is a big difference. So I just think a little sign for those 2 hours helps the people going south who live north of Coil Springs. Thank you. Oh, one other thing. It's been 5 years now since Bob Berry Jr. was killed at 141st, right there at the center median where there was a no U-turn. That's been knocked down. The sign needs to be put back. Thank you.
You want to know where that sign is? You know where he's talking about? What was the street again, sir?
It's on May Avenue.
May by one.
It's the center right there at 100, it would be like 141st.
141st. Okay, very good, sir. Okay, anybody else speak on item 5F? All right, as soon as the staff gets done right in here. All right, staff input, sir.
All right, well, you've got our comments before you. The one thing that we did do some extensive traffic counting at both these intersections, and we did find that about anywhere from 16 to 18% of the traffic southbound on Penn and on May was contributed from either right turning movements coming off of Quail Springs Parkway or right turns coming off of Northwest 140th Street. Now, those particular volumes also included the right turns that were made while the signal for the eastbound movements were green. So it's kind of a discretionary item because based on our peak time observations, because we had collected traffic data and done on-site observations at the times when traffic was heaviest, according to our counts, there can be arguments made both in favor and against putting in a no turn on red restriction. The problem I think that you'll probably run into is on some of those approaches there's a dedicated right turn lane. And it's going to be difficult for a lot of drivers sitting in a dedicated right turn lane to not turn right on red when they're in their own lane for that express purpose. You know, volumes coming out of these commercial, from the office parks emptying out, other businesses that typically close their doors at 5 o'clock and therefore contribute to the rush hour volumes. They do contribute to southbound movements on both Penn and on May. However, if you restrict them, I don't think that it's going to make a measurable difference as far as keeping queue space open for southbound traffic. So I think at this point in time, it's just up to commission discussion to see which way they'd prefer to go, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning 5F?
I make a motion to disapprove it based on staff's recommendation.
We have a motion to disapprove item 5F by Commissioner Miller. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Littlefield. Okay, do we have any talk on item 5F? I guess my question is, if they're in the right lane and they want to turn right and we say, no, you can't, is that going to back up that road or that area?
Well, it's always got the potential to do that. Now, in this particular case, Quail Springs Parkway and 140th Street aren't they're not major roadways. They may contribute to traffic on both Penn and May, but they are not major roadways. It's not like putting a no turn on red restriction on like a major intersection, like applying it to May Avenue itself or to Pennsylvania Avenue itself.
Okay.
And I do know the city's also looking, long term, ultimately at making some capacity improvements. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the city has enacted ordinances that created a traffic impact fee, and that's to help address capacity issues. Both of these areas are pretty heavily built out, and so whether or not you get a lot of contribution of traffic from Quail Springs Parkway and from 140th Street, you're still going to have a level of pretty noticeable congestion during the afternoon rush hours. I mean, it's just the nature of traffic patterns.
And what about the light and time in going down that major road? Is that part of our signal?
Yes, and typically when we do signal coordination, we're coordinating along an arterial. So we would be coordinating like all the signals that are typically on May Avenue to move traffic in large groups like on May Avenue or on Pennsylvania. Now you can do coordination so that you bring in a side street such that when it goes, then the receiving signals are turning green as well, but these side streets don't contribute enough to be the coordinated phase. It needs to be, any coordinated phases need to run along the main road itself.
Right, and is that going on now? Is that part of our coordinated light system right now?
Yeah, the intersections along Penn and along May are part of our coordinated system already.
Okay. Could the staff look at to make sure that the timing is correct at that time of day? to make sure that the
Let's
settings.
see if there's any adjustments that might need to be
Well,
made.
if he's waiting 2 or 3 light sequences to move through, and he's blaming the right turn lanes, well, maybe those lights aren't moving the groups of traffic, as you said, appropriately down the road. So maybe just have staff look at the timings during the rush hour time to make sure that the flow is going at the right way.
Yeah, and right now the city's in the process of, we've interviewed for 4 different consulting firms to provide on-call traffic engineering services, and I think this would be a good appropriate use for those contracts when they first come in to have, because the one thing that you get into is this right here is an effect that's actually generated close at Main Memorial and Penn and Memorial. Because when those intersections are reaching capacity, then they'll start forming queues back up the roads. And one of the things that's being observed here is that, if you've got a lot of traffic that's already queuing up southbound because of capacity-related issues, or maybe some signal timing adjustment issues down at those major intersections, taking some of the load off by putting in a right turn restriction, it may somewhat alleviate some of the symptoms, but it's not addressing like the root problem, which is typically an intersection going over capacity.
Right, so that's something that could be looked at.
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Yes, sir, come on up to the mic, please.
Back when you said that area is pretty much to capacity, it truly isn't. The 4 buildings that I told you that are empty comes to 170,000, it's 170,500 square feet that's not occupied right now. Then just north of Quail Springs, on the south side of 150th, is 220 acres undeveloped. You were talking about left lanes, a right turn only. There at Hefner Parkway and 63rd Street, there is a no right turn at that, and that's a designated right turn lane. So that there is.
But there's a difference at that particular off-ramp, and that's because as you are exiting Hefner Parkway southbound at 63rd Street, if you look off to your left, there's a bridge rail on top of the bridge wall that makes you can't safely see far enough down the road in order to make a decision to enter the intersection safely. That's the reason for that one.
Okay. Any other talk on item 5F? Okay, we have a motion to disapprove item 5F from Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, thank you. And staff, you're going to maybe looking at that roadway and the time and all that to make sure they're queuing.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we go on now to item 6, comments from citizens. Sir, did you have any comments? No? Okay, so we have nobody that wants to speak. Okay, we'll go on now to item 7, reports from other commissioners, et cetera. So we'll go over to Commissioner Littlefield.
Part comment or question. On Western Avenue, in the Western Avenue Business District corridor, where the Center Island medians have been placed for several years, and there have been a lot of people love them and a lot of people hate them, and I live in the area, so I see how many of the caution, the whatever the name of that particular signage is that warns people that they exist. I don't know if it was the city or if it was the Business Improvement District, but recently they were artificial turfed, and they pop and you can see them, and they look great, and I'm seeing less of those pylons being knocked over. So I think it was a positive move to calm traffic, but I'm curious how many, if we're seeing a reduction in people running over the signage in those since they have been turfed than prior to them being turfed.
Okay, I'm not aware as to when someone might have put like a median treatment on it like that. So it'd be tough to be.
It's been in the last 30 days.
Last 30 days.
Mm-hmm. It's a curiosity, though, but for traffic calming purposes and learning, I'd like to know on that. The other thing that I'm very interested in and it had to do with the first item for discussion, which was deferred, with regard to sight distance being obstructed by foliage and trees and et cetera. I wasn't aware that that could be an action center item. And I'm curious if it would probably have to be on right-of-way or private property. Would it matter if it's affecting sight distance, if it's private property or private property? And regardless of the answer to that, if it's causing a sight distance issue and it's like a mature tree or something like that, would the property owner be required to remove the entire tree to accomplish the proper sight distance?
The only thing the city seeks in something like that is to abate a problem. So if a tree can be trimmed and it would eliminate the view obstruction, then that's all that would be required. It wouldn't be required of a homeowner or a property owner necessarily to take a tree down in its entirety.
But they would be required to maintain it in such a fashion that sight distance could be accomplished in a safe way?
Yes.
Okay, great. I think that's it.
Okay, we're going now to Commissioner Schuline. Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Milner.
Nothing. Thank you.
Counselor, you have anything? Captain? No, sir. Okay. Staff?
All right, you've got our standard monthly report on yield and parking signs, which were installed administratively. And also this month, at the tail end of your agenda, you've got a few preliminary descriptions of some potential feature additions to the Alternative Speed Abatement Program, which we know as ASAP. These particular items were picked up from programs that we've found in Mesa, Arizona, Omaha, Nebraska, Tulsa, and Norman. What we've got in the back, and like I said, it's very preliminary, and there's a lot of learning that we've got to do about these. But we've got speed humps, mini roundabouts, and something that we're terming street alerts, which is basically a pavement marking that consists of a word or symbol or something along that line. And so you've got a few draft descriptions in front of you. We took a trip to the city of Norman this past Friday, and we were looking at several of these features. In Norman, they've used speed humps and they've used the mini roundabouts. And we've got, and up on the screen before you right now, we've got a couple pictures of some mini roundabouts. There's a very different and non-traditional compared to what we've been thinking in terms of having used in, possibly in Oklahoma City streets. These ones have got like a short barrier curb around the base, and then above that, the island slopes up and it goes into another taller curb section. So these are very pronounced features within the roadway. You'll see that they've got some signage mounted in the center median that indicates to drivers how they would need to make a left turn as they pass through it. And like with any roundabout, it's typically you enter and you go to the right and you circle around in a counterclockwise direction. So these are some of the things that we saw in Norman, and we also saw the speed humps that they had in place. These are also substantially larger than what we had originally been envisioning in the way of speed humps. Typically, a speed hump is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 12 to 13 feet in length as you travel over it. The speed humps in Norman were pushing around 22, 23 feet, and they were very substantial. So we did have the opportunity to visit with some area residents who lived near these things, just simply because they were out, and as luck would have it, one was an Oklahoma City police officer, and the other one was I believe a Cleveland County deputy sheriff who was being visited by an Oklahoma State trooper. So it was just luck of the draw. But their take on the mini roundabouts is that they were all right. They did not seem to have much in the way of an influence on traffic speeds, not so much as the speed humps that were present in their neighborhoods. So at this point in time, I'd like to encourage you to kind of go through what we have. This is only trying to flesh out what the items will be, and then from there we'll have to come up with procedures and processes to follow for neighborhood-wide implementation, because it'll be that aspect of public involvement, which will probably be the most challenging aspect of the entire program. at this point in time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Subcommittee is very pleased with the progress. Thank you very much. Looking forward to learning more.
Okay, and like I said, but appreciate any comments that you've got. I mean, there's a lot of reading that you can do online. You can take a look at some of the programs that are available nationally. And at this point in time, I'd love to get your feedback on what it is that we've got conceptually presented, and if there's any guidance that you would like to see in the way of like neighborhood involvement, neighborhood participation. We'd appreciate getting that from you as well.
Yeah, Stuart, if I'm reading this right, you've got, and this is great, by the way, thank you for this. Is this still in like testing mode? You're still researching it, or if a neighborhood calls you, is this application for a petition on these speed humps, is that ready to go? I just am curious where
Right,
you...
that is not ready to go because there are a number of policies out there, and everyone seems to have a slightly different take on how much neighborhood involvement. I mean, some might go as far as saying you need to have a neighborhood association.
Okay.
And so you would need like have a neighborhood traffic committee that needs to weigh in on this. And other ones could just be, just an interested person in their neighborhood that just wants to get this done. And then it would just be like, that individual or maybe a group of individuals petitioning their neighbors for it. So,
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so
we're still learning.
So what you're saying, a big thing is if you're in a neighborhood and there's 20 houses on a road, there's many different options. You could get one person on there to say, I'd like to have it, and we put it in. Another option would say we need all 20 people to have a weigh-in, and 75% say yes, 50%, 51% say yes. Or it could even be everybody in the neighborhood, especially the ones that are past that road, that would have to take it. So somebody, even though they're not on the road, if they're a user of that road, because it feeds into a smaller road of that neighborhood, they'd have to weigh in. And so that's what you're asking is, when we look at these kind of things, we need to think who in the neighborhood has to ask for it.
Well, I would feel like it would be the people just in that neighborhood, because...
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, but the neighborhood, there's 200 houses.
Yeah.
So is it just the people on the road that has the bump, or is it the people that would use that road to go to their little one?
What you're saying.
In their neighborhood.
Okay.
So, if you're looking at I use the term, a major road in a neighborhood that 100 houses drive on, and then they go into their little feeder road or side roads, does all 100 people have to weigh in because they drive over the hump? Or is it just people who are saying, these people are driving too fast in front of my house, I say it? Because the ones that are further into the neighborhood could say, no, I don't want it because I like doing 35. I mean, then they could, because they know we're not going to send our cops out there for a neighborhood speeding problem. So they could say, no, I don't want a speed hump because I don't want to go over one. So when we have to look at policy, who has to sign off on it? We have it right now for a stop sign or whatever, something in a housing area, the 300-foot thing and all that. But is that the kind of thing we want for these kind of options? That's what I think you're saying, that we need to think about those things.
Right. A neighborhood has, because at this point in time, it's still a neighborhood-funded program. So in a lot of respects, you really need, if you want to maintain like the viability of a neighborhood association or something like that, you need to make sure that you've got buy-in, literally, from your association. Because, one thing that I don't think that anyone in the city would want to have in the way of an unintended consequence would be for this to basically create so much consternation within a neighborhood association that it causes it to fall apart, or people just withdraw their support from it. Because like I said, if it's popularly and well supported, as by the neighborhood, as is demonstrated by petitions and things along that line, then chances are it may lend itself to be successful there. But I don't think you want to get in a situation where where in an effort to get these things on the road, you do things that would create, I don't know, a public distaste for them, and never really allow a program like this to get kind of an honest test in the real world.
I totally agree. I think from the onset, what we were assuming is that these would be considered in neighborhoods that are organized, and it would take a healthy buy-in to approve it. And I think it would also require a healthy buy-in to buy in. I mean, it's one block may not be able to afford, the element that would be installed. So the interesting question that you brought up, though, were areas where there's not an organized neighborhood association. A good example, I'm kind of going way out of the box here, but if we think about the situation with these folks today on that stretch of street there where they're not really, I don't think, a neighborhood association. It's a completely different kind of street, but it has a traffic calming issue, and it needs to be solved. How does it get applied in those situations is a really good question. Or you've just got a street that that shoots right through a neighborhood, and the only thing that the street accommodates in that neighborhood are side yards. There's no front yards facing it. And that's a problem, but the neighborhood's not organized, or there's two neighborhoods, one on each side of it. It's a great thing to think about, how those would be accomplished.
Right. Well, and I'm going to ask Mary Coyne to talk to you a little bit about that. She's been doing a lot of research in this matter, because the one thing that she's come across is that almost every community out there has a different take on how to fund the program. Some are very much just user-funded. Some are municipally funded. So, if you've got any questions regarding, like what an organized neighborhood could do, maybe as opposed to a neighborhood that has no structured organization and would probably have difficulties fundraising, Mary would be a great resource to ask questions.
We were able to get some very valuable information from our Norman representative counterpart in reference to their program that they had. It's right now it's under a suspension, so they're not actively reinstalling. But he shared with us a lot of the things that they ran into. And one of them was, of course, trying to set your petition zone, which is always exactly what you're discussing. How far do you go to get some input on that? It raises up more community binding by them doing the petition, because they're actually having these conversations with each other. So they arranged for it to be decided on a case-by-case basis. They said they learned that from having one street that they installed the speed humps to, and then started getting complaints from the 3 and 4 streets to the north of them. And they said, so that's when they realized they really needed to look at usage of who had to use that roadway. And some of them, that's the only access to a major arterial is by use of that connector street. So they said by having some input into it, made them actively more involved in the community. So they may not have a neighborhood alliance now, but perhaps this will start building some neighborhood alliances.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. Are you now done?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to present, but like I said, I'd love to get your feedback, any other comments, any suggestions that you might want to offer on the program. Very much appreciated, because that way we can at least focus in on these features and move them forward to full-fledged addition to the program.
Also a good idea may also be a good idea to have some interaction with Georgie Roscoe in the Neighborhood Alliance. Yeah. I think would be a great resource for this phase.
Okay. Does anybody have any other business for the Traffic Commission today? Sir, is there anything we can do for you?
Oh.
I'm sorry.
That's exactly what I wanted to come here to do.
Okay. Well, then we'll go back to your item. Comments from citizens.
I hadn't planned on making any comments.
Perfect. And thank you for filling out the form. If I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes, sir.
Lynn Dowdy, 10200 South Chartel Avenue, Oklahoma City. I'm a member of the Brookwood Neighborhood Association, and we have requested speed humps on the street. At one time, we had police officers writing tickets because I guess you have the same problem all over the city where people speed. So we actually had people bring out the temporary sign that says you're going this fast in this zone. They chained it to a tree next to the guy's house. It was stolen the next day. So there are so many speeders that really don't care, even if they felt it was safe. But there's a lot of kids that go up and down this street, and it connects Walker to Western. Brookwood Drive does. And that's probably one of the largest apartment complexes in the United States on that street. Plus, there's a school right at the end of that street. So we have people speeding up and down that street, and we tried everything we could. They've written millions of tickets, so you're right, tickets aren't going to stop them.
Okay, and where's that at again, sir?
Sir?
Where is this at again?
This is South Oklahoma City,
Okay.
between Walker Avenue and Western.
On what road?
It's between 104th and 89th Street,
So,
mid-block.
okay.
And we've tried everything that we know. And I've been over a bunch of those speed bumps in Norman. And the ones I like the best are where you exit on Robinson Avenue and that first street right there, the best set of speed bumps they have in that town as far as I'm concerned. But I think they work. I do think that they will do what we want to accomplish and y'all want to accomplish. And that's really all I have to say. I wanted to come to see how this worked, so I appreciate it.
All right, very good. Thank you for your input. Okay. Any other business for the Traffic Commission? I want to make sure before I hit. Am I okay, Counselor? All right, thank you very much. Okay, we are adjourned.